Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. The title of today's webinar is Push Their Buttons, Using Brain Science to Get B2B Prospects to Act. A little bit of housekeeping here. This will be recorded. If you did register for the webinar via the recording, via the email, you will get a copy of the recording automatically. If you're coming in via the live stream, great. You can get the recording by scanning a QR code at the end, or just email me. If you have questions, please do pop them into the chat. You can do that whether you're coming in through the live stream or if you are coming in on Zoom. Either one is fine. Get those questions posted while they come to mind so we can make sure to address them in time before the end of the webinar. Okay, a little bit about me. My name is Steve Robinson. I'm the founder and CEO here at Brilliant Metrics, and in addition to that, I do public speaking. I run workshops. I teach a couple classes with the UW-Milwaukee School of Continuing Ed, and that's about it for me. Brilliant Metrics, we are a B2B only digital marketing agency. Our clients rely on us to continuously improve, to continuously reduce risk and continuously increase return on marketing investment. We do more with data than most other agencies, and that data translates into better return on investment and reduced risk. Enough with that, let's move on to the program here. I'm going to cover a little bit about prospect inertia and why it is so important to use some of the tactics we'll talk about today in order to get your clients, your prospects, to overcome that hump of inaction and actually take action on your offers. And then we're going to go through 7 individual psychological techniques that you can use to really put a little bit more oomph, a little bit more of a nudge behind your offers and get your prospects, get your audience to act. So let's talk about prospect inertia. Concept of inertia coming from physics, an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and your prospects are no different. Your prospects are out there going about their daily activities, run across an offer of yours, and a number of factors come into play that will prevent them from taking action on that offer. First of all, the path of least resistance is always a path of inaction. Do nothing is always easier than doing something. And so if you're hitting your prospect at a moment when they are tired or when they are feeling lazy or when they are focused on personal stuff, getting them to take action requires effort. You're asking them to, even if it's just a click, there's mental effort in engaging with your content or your offer. Second, we are, as human beings, really good at procrastination. So tomorrow always feels like a better time to do anything than today. There's always more information to gather first. Nobody ever feels ready to take an action that involves change, whether that's changing vendors or even the idea of changing vendors, or simply learning something new. Sometimes it feels like you need to have your ducks in a row before you can really take advantage of that offer. And nobody ever really feels fully prepared. And so your prospects will use this as an excuse not to act on your offer. Regret. You can never regret a choice you never make. You're never going to regret wasting your time on that webinar. You're never going to regret spending money or spending your time in a meeting with a vendor that didn't go anywhere, right? You can't regret that which you didn't do. And this also is, again, a force that is pushing your prospects towards inaction. And then finally, there's always just the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I know what my current vendor is doing right now, and I know all of their issues. I know all their foibles, all of their little quirks, right? And we've been able to work around them so far. If I explore, even in the slightest way, a new vendor, that's scary because I have no idea what their issues are going to be, what their quirks are. And it could end up being that I'm jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire for all I know. That weighs on your prospect for them, and it prevents them from taking action in trying a new product, trying a new service, trying a new vendor. Anytime there's change from the status quo, I could make it worse just as likely as I make it better. So how do we overcome all of these forces pushing your prospect to not act? We'll talk about the first one. The first tactic is called the mere exposure effect. And if you've been around hanging around Brilliant Metrics for a while, or me for a while, you know that this is one of my favorite psychological tricks. The mere exposure effect came out of an experiment that was run, as you can see, it was run in the 60s based on this hand-drawn graphic here, right? And so what they did is at two different universities, I believe it was Michigan State and University of Michigan, they published in the student newspaper, when it was still a printed thing, a list of nonsense words on the front page of each school's newspaper. And they did that over the course of, I think, like 8 weeks or something like that. But what they did is they changed up which words they published at different frequencies between the two schools. So one school got ichthytaph, right? Published at a high frequency on the front page. The other school got ichthytaph only published once, maybe twice. And they did this all the way down, alternating between which school got which word at a high or low frequency. And then they surveyed the student population, and they didn't ask them how familiar these words looked. Instead, they asked, what is the definition of these words? Or more specifically, would you guess that the definition of this word means something good or means something bad? And the result was that if the word was published at a high frequency, it meant something good. And if the word was published at a low frequency, it meant something bad or at least less good than if it was published at a high frequency. So what this means to us as marketers is simply getting our brand in front of our target audience on a regular basis will make our brand better in the eyes of our audience. Our audience will like us and trust us more simply by having seen us that many more times. We tested this. We tested this with a client. We ran a series of content ads, blog posts on their own. And then we also ran that with some brand ads running in the background. Now, the brand ads had no calls to action on them whatsoever. They were just simply the brand of the company and their position in that market. And the blog content was the same, whether it was the control or the treatment group that had the brand ads. And what we found was that introducing these brand ads increased engagement with the blog content by 90%, almost double the website interaction that we got out of the audience if we included the brand ads at targeting that same audience. That air cover, that lift in awareness, likability, and trust that the blog content was going to be worth their time and accurate was lifted by almost a factor of 1 or double. The effect was also consistent across 3 very different market segments. Now, it worked better on some market segments than others, but as you can see by the graph, the lift was there every single time. So next steps for you: 1, run brand advertising alongside your content and other offers. That additional brand awareness will translate to a higher engagement and offer takers, people taking you up on your offer for the other media that you run. Second, don't ignore brand advertising as a whole. See if there are opportunities to get your brand name in front of your audience more often at the lowest possible rate. So the better targeted, the better. The lower the CPM, the better. Get your brand, just your logo, and ideally your position in the marketplace in front of as many people as possible on as regular a basis as possible. Okay, moving on, we're going to talk about information gap theory here.
I know something you don't know.
All right, creepy video aside, information gap theory is basically that. You are telling the audience you know something they don't know, but not telling them what that is just yet. Anytime you create an information gap like this, where you are dangling a carrot of knowledge in front of your target audience, you incite them to act. Because when somebody feels like there is a piece of information out there that they don't know, but they should know, or they need to know, or want to know, and you have it, and all I have to do is click to get it, that person will click. Now, the dark side of this is where we start getting into clickbait. This is, clickbait has become a really it's a negative, pervasive thing in our world. And the reason why people hate clickbait is not because of the psychological tactic that gets the click, it's because of the disappointment on the other side. When I click on clickbait, I'm taken to a page that is a made for advertising or MFA website that's just loaded up in ads. And the thing that you promised isn't really there. So you have to be very careful as a brand that you don't fall into that bucket of clickbait. You have to be very careful that you're fulfilling on the promise of information on the other side of the click. If you do that, then leveraging the information gap theory will increase the number of people taking you up on your offer, whether that offer is a blog post offering some sort of insight, whether it is a webinar or an event where they're going to learn something, or even the product itself. So next steps for you, create intrigue and curiosity in your copy. Do not give away the cow. Make them click in order to get that information, to get that milk. 2, balance this and make sure you don't fall into that clickbait bucket by fulfilling on the value that you tease inside of your ad or offer copy. Okay, next up is scarcity. Scarcity is when we limit quantity or limit access to something. When you do that, you inherently increase the value of it. So a lot of accelerators will create scarcity for startups in their programs by putting an application process in place and saying, we're only going to accept the top X number of startups. That's one way of creating scarcity. Another way of creating scarcity is to just flat out say we've got a limited run of such and such. This is a great way to increase the value of the offer that you're putting out there. So if you're incentivizing meetings with a with a Stanley mug, right? You're going to say, we're only going to do this for the first 20 people who sign up to schedule a meeting with us. In doing so, then you create scarcity around those Stanley mugs associated with that meeting, and you increase the value of the mug and the meeting. Scarcity only works, however, if it's done in combination with other tactics, because if the prospect doesn't see value in the thing in the first place, making it more scarce doesn't actually increase, it doesn't amplify that value. In other words, scarcity is really an amplification tactic, not just a net increase in value. So you have to couple it with other tactics or with a really compelling offer in the first place. So if you're giving something away, limit the quantity. If you can build your business model around something that creates scarcity, and examples of that would be, limiting limited production runs of something. Great, do it. But in B2B, that's really hard to do. Usually we'll find scarcity come up in scenarios where we're giving something away as an incentive to take an action. Urgency is scarcity's cousin, I guess would be the best way to put it. I love this graphic. This was literally while I was researching a previous presentation, I ran across this. Walmart Plus, which is their version of Amazon Prime, popped up on my as a pop-up on my screen. It says limited time only, get 50% off your annual Walmart membership. Offer expires, and they put a date and a very specific time in there of 2:59 p.m. Eastern. That's fascinating. There is some psychological aspects to specificity that makes an offer more salient and more powerful. Somebody apparently read that paper when they put this together. But the part that really gets me is while supplies last. As if there is a limited number of Walmart Plus subscriptions out there, and they're going to run out. Like that copy is there entirely for psychological reasons and isn't even grounded in reality. But at the end of the day, if you can introduce this kind of urgency, it really helps to overcome procrastination, because we all know that we're procrastinators. We also know that we're forgetful to some extent. And if we think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, we run the risk of missing the offer altogether if there is some urgency to that offer. The key thing is consistency. Be consistent in the urgency you create. So if you run an offer that's time boxed, run that offer again periodically or seasonally, because it trains the audience that it will come back, but they're going to have to wait. And that's the other part. Make sure that they do have to wait before that offer comes up. If I know I'm going to get the same offer from you every month, I don't need to have any urgency in taking advantage of that offer. I just have to wait for it to come back next month. But if you're gonna make that offer only once or twice a year, then I know I need to take you up on that offer now. Finally, never extend an offer. Urgency only works if your prospect knows that you're serious about it. If you regularly extend your offers, your audience will catch on, and then they won't take the deadline seriously anymore. So your next steps, every offer you put out there should have an expiration. Now, if it's an event or a webinar, that expiration is built in, right? But if it's another type of offer, put a deadline on it and publish it. Make that deadline very prominent in any ad copy and any content that people are reading, saying this goes away after this date. Go ahead and repeat these offers on a seasonal basis. And if you can tie the name of the offer to the season, even better. That way they know it's coming back and they can kind of anticipate it and expect to take action on it. People end up making a pre-commitment to purchase from you or take advantage of that offer if they know it's coming. And then finally, never extend an offer. Stay true to your words so that your offers continue to have bite in them. Okay, next up, reasons. I mentioned putting a season to your offer and including the season in your offer if you're going to time box it around a particular season and make it seasonal. But that also plays into this reason dynamic. There was a study done at another university, also dating itself because it's centered around photocopiers. Anybody who went to school before the 2000s knows that, photocopying was a very real part of schoolwork, and there would regularly be lines behind a photocopier at busier times at the library. And so the way they ran this study is they sent the researcher into the library to go and try to cut in line to get a copy made. And what they found out was that if the researcher simply said, "Can I cut in line?" More often than not, they were sent to the back of the line. But if the researcher walked up and said something like, "Can I cut in line because I've got a class in 15 minutes and I need this copy before I can go to the class," oftentimes the person would let that person cut in line. Where the study took a left turn was if the person walked up and said, "Can I cut in line because I need to make copies?" The probability that that person let them cut in line was almost as good as if they gave a really valid reason. The nonsense reason of "because I need to make copies" almost worked as well as if they said, "because I have a class in 15 minutes and I really need these copies before my class." Human beings will accept an offer with a reason without questioning the reason. So give a reason for your offer. Give any reason for your offer. It will prevent your audience from questioning your motivation in making this offer. And it doesn't matter the reason. As evidenced by this study, Alex Hormozy likes to point out that at a college fraternity, it doesn't matter the reason for the party. We can make up any reason for the party, and people are still going to come, and nobody's going to question why you're holding the party. So your next steps, every single offer you have out there, give your audience a reason why you're making the offer. Give the audience a reason for them to take the offer, and don't overthink it. Your offers can be as simple as, these are our third Thursday offers. Every third Thursday, we make an offer. That's why we're giving you this opportunity here. Okay, bonuses. Ron Popeil is the master of bonuses. Bonuses do two things. One, they ratchet up the value of your offer, and I'll show you how in a second, while differentiating that offer. So if you've ever seen one of the old school Ron Popeil infomercials, his tagline is, "But wait, there's more." And the way this works is pretty simple. The initial offer sets an anchor. This is part of an anchoring principle, which is a different psychological principle, but plays an important role in bonuses. That anchor then in your mind says, okay, that's a good offer, but it's not quite worth it. And you sort of put a position of that offer in your mind on where it sits on the spectrum of worth it versus not worth it, right? And then if the offer that you're reading, if the copy that you're reading, if the video that you're watching comes in and says, oh, but if you act now, we'll throw in this, all of a sudden that offer increases in value. And it has to increase from where you anchored it when you first heard the offer. You can't just reset the scale with the new bonus included. It has to get to be more valuable. And then you come in with another bonus, and now all of a sudden the value has to ratchet up even further. The value can never go down. Each bonus has to make the value of the offer that much greater, which then at some point the scale tips and it's now worth the investment. Whether that investment is me filling out a form and giving you my contact information, or whether that investment is my time in attending a webinar or signing up for a meeting on your Calendly, or whether that investment is actually purchasing your product or service, it's still an investment. Every time you add a bonus, you push the value trade-off for that investment up, and it can only go higher based on its last position. The other way that bonuses are awesome is they create oranges. So what do I mean by that? Let's say I'm selling a piece of industrial equipment, and competitor one of mine offers this piece of industrial equipment for $314,000. For $314,000, you get the piece of equipment. Competitor two comes in with a price of $297,000. $297,000, you get the piece of equipment. Great. Apples to apples, it's a no-brainer to go for competitor two. Now, I might look at quality and I might look at, total cost of ownership and other things like that, but you can bet either I and or procurement is going to go look at this and say, competitor two looks really compelling. Unless there's something wrong with that equipment, there's no reason to go with competitor one. So then you come in and you say, well, it's $352,000, but we're selling you the equipment plus an extended warranty, plus 3 service calls, plus an enhanced engineering assessment, plus a financing package. The person on the receiving end of this goes, okay, that's not comparable to what the offer is from competitor two or competitor one. So I now have to price you in your own category because nobody else is offering what you're offering. So I guess 352 seems fair. You're pulled out of the fray. And this is pretty obvious when we talk about something like a piece of equipment, but this is also true for things like events or other, non-direct sale opportunities. If you can bundle and add things to that event, free book with your attendance, or along with your attendance, you get a free voucher for this or something else. You start to increase that value incrementally as somebody reads the copy on the page. Plus, you're now pulling that event out from the value anchoring of every other event or opportunity for that person to spend their time. So next steps, anchor with an initial offer, and then add bonuses as the prospect engages. And that last part is key. Ideally, they're discovering the bonuses as they engage with you. Either you're revealing them in a series of emails, or it's further down in the copy on the page, or later in the video. In order for this strategy to work, the first offer has to anchor the value someplace below the threshold of where they're willing to take the offer. And then each subsequent bonus ratchets up that value until it eventually hits the tipping point. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is social proof. Nobody wants to go first. This is true on the playground, as evidenced by this children's book, and this is true in business. So your goal is to show that others have gone before you By demonstrating that other people have gone before you, you de-risk that offer for the next person. This only works if your social proof is real. So anytime you can, you want to show faces and real names along with your testimonials or star ratings. If you can quantify the value of that social proof, give it a star rating or a quantitative rating, or say 9 out of 10 of people who have attended this event have said that it is of high value. Sharing how many people have bought or previously engaged with your offer in the past can also make it more concrete or more real. So your next steps, show testimonials and reviews, use real people, obviously with their permission, and make it quantifiable if possible. Use star ratings, use number of people, etc. Adding some sort of a numerical component makes that social proof a lot more real than without it. All right, summing up for today. Prospect inertia is real. There are so many forces that will cause your prospect to stay at rest. You need to pull every trick you can out to get them to act. The mirror exposure effect is a great way to build trust and likability. It greases the skids for all future offers. You can leverage the information gap to tease the prospect with information they could learn if they engage with you and your product, your offer, your event, whatever it is that you're holding in front of them. Scarcity increases the perceived value of your offer, but only if it already has value. It's really a value amplification tactic. Urgency is a great tool to prevent procrastination. Giving reasons prevents the prospect from questioning your motivation for providing this offer, A, and B, will just generally increase the number of people taking you up on your offer, as evidenced by the photocopier study. Bonuses push the value, ratchet that value up by taking an anchor and making it better, while also differentiating your offer from others. And finally, you always want to layer on some social proof if possible to de-risk the offer that you're putting out there. And so with that, does anyone have any questions? All right, I do not see. Oh, with social proof, do you use geo-targeting? That's a great question. Um, a lot of the clients that we work with will focus their lead generation or their demand generation programs geographically to begin with. In other words, if you don't have enough budget to market to the whole globe, then you constrain at least to the United States. If you don't have enough budget to market to the entire United States, rather than spreading that off effort thin throughout the entire United States, focus it in on specific metro areas or states or regions within the United States until you constrain the geography down to meet your budget. And the reason why you do that is primarily social proof. Now, in today's day and age where we're far more digitally connected than we were in the past, this isn't quite as true as it used to be, but it used to be that you want to make sure that if your marketing reaches somebody to the point that they're thinking about acting and they go and ask their buddies or their colleagues or the folks that they've worked with in the past, hey, what do you know about product XYZ or company XYZ, that person will have heard of it, if not have used it, and will be able to speak highly of your product or service. So you build in that social proof there. We've never taken the opportunity to actually differentiate messaging regionally to use people in the given market, but that makes sense. We have taken the opportunity to differentiate messaging and social proof based on industry or market sector, because there, if I see other companies like the one that I'm in who have taken you up on your offer, that'll have more weight than some company in some other industry altogether. So I would start there. Instead, when it comes to social proof, simply constraining your geographic reach to match your budget is a good way to start because I haven't run across a whole lot of clients that have unlimited budget and are going nationwide without having to make some trade-offs on narrowing their budget and their targeting. Is there a point where seeing too many brand ads will have the opposite impact of the mere exposure effect? That's a great question. I think the short answer is um, no, but there's a couple of things to keep in mind. One, you want to make sure that your brand ads are visually distinct from your offers, from any of your content or your offers that you're whether it's a lead magnet or it's a core offer that you're putting out there. Your brand ads need to be visually distinct so that you don't end up, creating banner blindness there. Beyond that, usually if you're not managing your frequency or you have too many ads out there, it's wasteful. So we've never really hit the point where we've been able to either study or find a point where we've tipped it too far. We have found if the brand ads look too much like other ads, it will reduce the click-through rate or engagement rate in the other ads because they get lumped in with the brand ads as being noise, and the same thing I've seen over and over again. Um, Eric asks, does email count towards the mere exposure effect? Absolutely. However, uh, that's only a small portion of your audience. It's the people who have opted in or that you have opted in and are engaging with your email. So it's only a component, but it is a very strong component if the audience is engaging with that email, because chances are they're not just opening the email, but they're also reading a piece or two, which is even deeper engagement with the brand. Mere exposure effect is really a matter of frequency, the number of times you see the brand, but I haven't read a study on this, but depth of engagement with the brand would logically also play into the efficacy there, right? So email is a little bit deeper of an engagement. It's more intimate. It's in your own inbox. You're often clicking, you're reading, you're watching, you're doing something after that email, which is further depth of engagement, which will increase the value of that impression, and really help on the mere exposure effect front. Okay. With that, if you have any more questions, feel free to email us. If you haven't already, please follow us on LinkedIn. You'll get notified of future webinars like this and have the opportunity to watch them live streamed right on LinkedIn. And please do let me know if there's an opportunity for us to help put some of these tactics to work for your organization. And have a wonderful day.